All right. Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to our webinar today on strengthening the educator workforce through the National Registered Apprenticeship and Teaching District Network. Really excited to have you all here today. This is our fourth webinar in 3 days as part of celebrating National Apprenticeship Week. And I want to start by giving a shout out to our co-hosts at the Association of Educational Service Agencies, AESA, as well as AASA, the School Superintendents Association, of which Noel over there is on our National Center for Grow Your Own Advisory Board. And speaking of National Center for Grow Your Own, my name's David Donaldson. Serve as the founder of the 501c3 nonprofit, where we have the honor and privilege of working with states and districts and ed prep providers across the country to support or expand grow your own and registered apprenticeship and teaching programs. And a little bit of background before we get started. Just want to share first about some of the opportunities that we offer. If you're joining today, most likely district folks to learn from our great panelists today. We want to talk first that we have 3 different networks that you can potentially join if interested. If you are from a state education agency or from a state labor agency, we have the National Registered Apprenticeship and Teaching State Network, which, proud to say, as of this week, added our 30th member. So we now have 60% of the country we are now serving in our network, with Arizona just joining this week. Really excited to have them. Next, we have our district network, which you're going to hear from leaders today, as you know, from Saginaw ISD in Michigan, Appoquinimink School District in Delaware, as well as Ector County ISD in Texas. And the one thing I want to highlight about the district network before you hear from the panelists is that we got districts with 1,500 students, and we got literally the largest district in the United States with New York City. The point is, regardless if you're urban, suburban, rural, whether you're 1,500 kids or over, million students, registered apprenticeships and K-12 teaching and grow your own programs are possible. They can be done. And you're going to hear from folks that are literally doing that work and showing what is possible in their respective states. And this district network is showing what's possible across the country. And finally, just this week, also as part of National Apprenticeship Week, with our good friends at Deans for Impact, we launched a new network for educator preparation providers. That is, one of the biggest barriers that we see with our states and districts is identifying those high quality, low cost ed prep providers to partner with. You're actually going to hear about some great partnerships, though, that our districts have today, but we need more and more high quality options. And so excited to launch this network again with Deans for Impact. Again, I do want to share, and I think it will be put in the chat. Thank you, Ben. If you have any interest in represent a ed prep provider, a school district, or a state education or labor agency, feel free to express your interest in the link that Ben just put in the chat for everyone. I would just add that these networks should be affordable for anyone's budget because the networks are completely free. We host all of these networks and this new Ed Prep network of Deans for Impact at no cost to participants, because it's all about creating a space for states to learn from states, from districts to learn from districts, and ed preps to learn from ed preps. And speaking of districts learning from districts, I'm going to ask my esteemed panelists to go ahead and turn on their screens. And excited to have them join us in today's discussion. And so first, just based on the way my screen is showing, I'm going to introduce Jenny Gino from Saginaw ISD in Michigan. Jenny, I'm kind of a little surprised by the wave and not the traditional showing of where you are on the map. For those who don't know, I'm a native Michigander, former principal and head count Detroit Public Schools. So I love other Michiganders. Some say Michiganians. I do not like those people who say that. I say Michigander, and we're so excited to have Jenny here. Now, next up, Jamie Jamie Miller from Ector County ISD. And oh my goodness, they're doing some incredible work that you're about to hear more from today. I'm very, very excited for those in attendance to be able to learn from Jamie and Jenny. And last but absolutely not least, Dominique Banks from Appoquinimink School District in Delaware. And I love, okay, folks, I actually, like, true story. I grew up with a speech impediment, and so had a speech pathologist going through. And the fact that I love saying Appoquinimink now, and that was not the case. I used to just, whenever I talked to Dominique and the folks at the Delaware Department of Ed, I would just be Appo. But it's very important to get the names of people and places pronounced correctly, as we just had an earlier conversation. And so Appoquinimink, it's a great place in the first state, which I also like saying that literally it's Delaware is known as the first state. So I love slogans. What, Jenny, what are we in Michigan? What I always remember, like, what was it? If you seek a peninsula, look around you, but we're Mitten State. Is that what we are technically?
We are the Mitten State,
Mitten
yes.
State. And Jamie, you're the Lone Star State, right? Is that your official? Okay. There's some geography stuff I remember a little bit. But yeah. Okay. Anyway, we're not here for that. So, Jamie, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Ector County ISD has had a long history of innovative human capital work. Folks, if you're not aware, look what you're about to hear, but also Ed Week did a great article about the incredible work taking place over years in Ector County. Um, I'm curious, why did you all choose to pursue registered apprenticeships for teachers in addition to all of your current initiatives?
Well, we do have some great initiatives, and it all started back in 2019 when our district of 34,000 students started the school year with 350 vacancies. Those are teacher vacancies. So we had kids going into classrooms without teachers. So we really started our pipeline work. We started with para to teacher. We have opportunity culture campuses with public impact, where we have a really great teacher residency program. We are one of only 3 districts in Texas that have our own EPP, so we can certify teachers. But in Texas, we're really hitting that funding cliff. We had ESSER funds, and we were using these funds to put people through these pipelines so that we had certified teachers in our classrooms. And it worked. We started the year this year with 36 vacancies. So we went from 350 to 36. But what we know is it's not an issue of people becoming a teacher because they don't have the skill or the will. We have people who want to be certified teachers in our district. We looked at research, and 65% of teachers teach 15 miles from the high school that they graduated from. So we know we have people in Ector County who want to be certified teachers, but they do not have the funding in order to do that. So our logical next step was to pursue an apprenticeship. So we did work with Grow Your Own in order to do that. But what else it helped us to do was work with our local college and our local university. And we went to them. I have a very innovative superintendent, Dr. Scott Murray, and he was like, I want this before we even pull down funds for their school to be fully funded, tuition and fees. He was like, go to the university, go to the college and do this. And once we went to these institutions and said, hey, we're going to have a registered apprenticeship for teachers. This is what we need from you. They bought in and were like, okay, it's done. Tuition and fees are paid. But we also know that that's not enough. We have people who are paras in our district who also need wraparound services. They need to have funds for gas. They need to have funds for childcare. And as a district, we want those extra funds for professional learning, for stipends, so that we can help our teachers be the best that they can be in our classrooms. Another reason we're doing this is because it's hands-on training. All of our apprentices have to go through that teacher residency program. So they're going to spend a full year with a high quality teacher. So they're not going to be first year teachers when they step into the classroom. We actually say they're going to be second or third year teachers by the time that they get there.
I love hearing that. I love hearing that. That's my favorite. If this work is done well, it is eliminating the concept of a first year teacher. People used to laugh when I would say that, and you all are proving that it can be done. Also, shout out to Superintendent Dr. Murray. We'll have the honor of presenting with him at speaking of our co-hosts, AASA at their national conference early next year. So again, shout out to Noel and Tara Thomas from AASA, but really excited for Ector County to be featured on the national stage. Speaking of national stages, Ector County and both Saginaw will be featured at the upcoming national convening on registered apprenticeships and teaching. And so, Jenny, I'm curious, Saginaw ISD has a strong focus on career and technical education and registered apprenticeship programs starting with high school. Can you share a bit about that focus and your program overall?
Oh, absolutely. So as many of you may know, CTE, or Career and Technical Education, is part of our nation's workforce development system. Approved programs must meet a measure of rigor and relevance that results in industry credentials, college credit, and training that aligns to workforce needs. CTE programs are also taught by industry professionals that have robust, recent, and relevant work experience within the disciplines that they instruct. So in Saginaw County, we have a strong high school CTE teacher program. As districts continue to struggle with getting their teacher candidates to fill openings, and we struggle to get students interested in becoming teachers, it was clear that we had an opportunity to build something special that would be a path toward the greatest occupation on earth, which is teaching. Because I'm passionate about CTE and feel that workforce talent gap should begin with state-approved CTE programs, I began to work with our local university, Saginaw Valley State University, to develop a teacher academy. So this academy is a CTE early middle college program whereby students can earn up to 46 direct credits toward their bachelor's degree in education at no cost to them. So this is the amount of credits needed before they can apply to the College of Education. And we get a reduced tuition rate also for our CTE EMC students. We then created another pathway with Delta College, which is our community college partner specific to early childhood education. Couple that with our Child Development Associate and Michigan Youth Development Associate credentials that are part of the program, both of which require a large amount of work-based learning hours and robust instruction. Students would be well prepared to work in an educational setting while pursuing their teaching certification. This would help to make the profession more attractive to students as costs were defrayed and students become, more savvy about the return on investment with post-secondary training. A few years, though, after the Teacher Academy began, I was invited to a meeting to discuss the idea of a teacher apprenticeship. Around the table at that very first meeting included the dean from Saginaw Valley State University, Dr. James Tarr. He is the dean of the College of Education, Department of Labor representatives, and a few school district leaders. There was definitely an interest to move forward, so we added additional partners at subsequent meetings, including the Michigan Department of Education. That's where Candace Vincent comes in, and she's been with us at the table ever since. This is the genesis of teacher apprenticeship in the state of Michigan. So around the same time, our state was working on apprenticeship expansion within high demand occupations. One of the focus areas was in developing high quality pre-apprenticeship programs that would accelerate students into a registered apprenticeship program. So we were working on this across all occupations. So I figured we need to be doing this for education as well. I wanted to make sure that our students had that opportunity. So we got to work. We assembled an educator advisory group with representatives from our local school districts to develop a multi-level Michigan apprenticeship readiness certificate for this program. I won't get into the weeds with all of the details about that particular certificate, but in order to create it, we crosswalked the CTE competencies for education with the work processes for both teacher's aid and the teacher apprenticeship once it was approved in Michigan. And then we noticed that there was a 100% alignment to the teacher's aid work process, as well as real strong alignment between the teacher work process. So we crosswalked those two together as well. We did a lot of crosswalking. We also examined the high quality framework for pre-apprenticeships to ensure that we were meeting all of those indicators. And as a result, our high school CTE program became recognized as a pre-apprenticeship program. One of the deliverables was the MARC certificate, the Michigan Apprenticeship Readiness Certificate that I mentioned before, which could potentially accelerate a student into a registered apprenticeship program, allowing employers, in this case our local school districts, to grant credit for previous experience and earned post-secondary credit, reducing the employer costs and also the apprenticeship time. Because the CTE competencies are aligned with the Educator Preparation Program competencies in Michigan, which that's what we use for our apprenticeship here, our competency-based system potentially offers up to half of the time needed to complete the registered apprenticeship while a student is still in high school. So we're really proud of that opportunity that we've been able to provide.
Yeah, great work. I think there's so many high schools, and I always say that, yes, 100 different districts for their definition of grow your own, you get 100 different answers. But we like to say it's a clear articulated pathway for an aspiring educator to become a teacher for free, get paid to do so. And your clear articulated pathway is starting in high school, because frankly, it's going to be very direct. Too many high school programs, they're getting kids dual credit, dual enrollment, early college, and keep doing that. That is great work. I think the best example in the country from a state perspective is West Virginia, what they've done from a coherent standpoint, but we're hearing great examples from a district level. But the thing that I see too often is that they take the thoughts and prayers approach. Thoughts and prayers that they'll leave the high school and magically navigate financial aid and enroll in their courses, and the worst part of all, pay tuition to a university to work for free in a school district as part of traditional student teaching or clinical internship. And so removing that barrier, that financial, and saying with a registered apprenticeship, you are paid. And so, Jenny, I want to give kudos for having a clear articulated pathway for the high schools students to graduate with college credit into the option of that registered apprenticeship and teaching. We need more of that. Speaking of what we need more of, Dominique, one thing about your work is it's been highlighted by the U.S. Department of Ed recently. Also, Delaware as a whole will be featured at the national convening that coming up. And you recently got to present as part of a presentation to the National Registered Apprenticeship State Network, which was really cool to have states hear from a district perspective and the great work happening in Delaware. And so, again, with the great work happening in the first state, you and Appoquinimink School District were the first registered apprenticeship in teaching program in the state of Delaware. In your case, the State Department of Education is the sponsor. Can you talk to me about your relationship with the Delaware Department of Ed in getting this program launched and their support as a sponsor?
Sure thing, David. Speaking of sponsors and support, I would like to thank our partners for working to make the teacher apprenticeship possible. The National Center for Grow Your Own, Delaware Department of Education, Delaware Department of Labor, Rodale, which is a nonprofit, and Wilmington University. For the audience, the Appoquinimink School District is Delaware's, or one of Delaware's premier school districts. We are also the fastest growing district in the state. For the past 6 years, 6 out of the past 7 years, we've been identified as the state's #1 school district. So I would like to think some of those things have played a part in us being identified as the pilot for the apprenticeship. I also like to think that we benefited from a chance and an opportunity in a moment. What I mean by that is back in 2001, we were really emphasizing our Grow Your Own program with our students. We had a school board meeting, and we were identifying some kids who had been experts, for lack of a better term, in their high school, in their pathway. And one of the students was going to receive a scholarship offer from Wilmington University, who's one of our partners. So following this board meeting, Luke Ryan, who was at the Delaware Department of Education, who's now at the state, United States Department of Ed, along with Mr. Versigno, they had a brief conversation about teacher apprenticeships, and it was just a handshake and a gentleman's agreement. And from that birth, greater detail, greater conversation around what this could possibly look like. So now here we are, we get the green light, and it happened swiftly, I would say. You know, we talked about this probably January-ish or whatever the case may be. And that kicked a lot of things into overdrive. Our partners at the Delaware Department of Education, they're invested. Michael Saylor and Clay and their team, they've been with us on this ride. It hasn't been one of those things where you say, you know what, here's an opportunity, you do whatever you need to do to make it happen. No, they've been along with us on the ride. Planning time, countless meetings, taking time to speak at the House Education Committee to explain to the masses as to why this teacher apprenticeship is a must for us and why it's going to be important. I mean, important work. And Clay, she's been phenomenal, to say the least. She's put a lot of work in. Everything from applying for the state apprenticeship expansion formula grant, non-competitive, to meeting with the Department of Labor to smooth out the MOUs, to even coming down to the district with her partner, Angela, to do observations with our apprentices and provide feedback to allow for them to grow. She and I talk often. Whenever we see each other in different spaces, we talk about this work and we talk about it to everyone that's going to listen to us. So they have been tremendous, to say the least. And I'm super excited about what this is going to look like beyond the right now, right? To have us as the pilot, of course, it's a big deal. You know, we're learning on the fly. There's been some bumps in the road, and I'll talk about some of those things later as we talk about our partnership with Wilmington University. But this has been phenomenal. It's been great. And I'll talk about some of the other things that have, you know, kind of stemmed from this work and this partnership.
Well, thank you, Dominique. People are listening. People are learning from you. We got good attendance here today too, and so keep on talking. And shout out to Michael and Ann, who I know I think they're in San Diego. They wanted to be here, and shout out to Mark Baxter at Rodell. Talk about great partnerships with public and private. Speaking of great partnerships, to Jamie, we're big fans of Permian Strategic Partnership. That's one thing you have in common with the work in Appoquinimink of having good partners. But one thing that makes your program different than the registered apprenticeship for Appoquinimink is that in Ector County, Ector County is the sponsor and the employer. Can you share about your process in getting the program registered and working working with the U.S. Department of Labor?
Well, I can tell you that I could not have done this work without you and Miles. This is when you look at registering an apprenticeship, it is a lot of paperwork, but if you do not have the knowledge of how to do this, then it becomes very difficult. Should we be the employer? Should you be the sponsor? Where are you going to get the most benefit from that? What pipelines were we going to have people go through this apprenticeship? So we ended up landing on our Odessa Pathway to Teaching, which is our EPP. That pipeline is an apprentice pipeline. Our Para to Teacher work. So we have people employed in classrooms, and then they go through our apprenticeship and become certified teachers. And then we have our Future Teachers of Odessa, which is kind of what Jenny was speaking about. It is our high school students who graduate with 78 credit hours in teaching, and they can become a teacher within 2 years. And so those were really the pipelines that we settled on. Grow Your Own made this a very simple process because you had us pull what we already had. What interview questions did we have? What are our funding sources? How are we going to make this work? And so working with you made it very easy because you knew what we needed and what we would probably already have that we didn't have to create. Also working with our local universities and Odessa College, because when you are doing an apprenticeship, you do have to have course sequence. You do have to have what is going to be taught in those courses. So just know that you're pulling from a lot of different areas in order to make this apprenticeship happen. With the Department of Labor, it has been a joy working with my contact. Once we were registered, she was like, let's get on a Zoom, let's get you into Rapid, which sometimes can be confusing. And then she helped me to walk through that. So after I was registered, it has been just very easy working with the Department of Labor. Now I was like, show me the money. And she's like, okay, well, you're going to get it from different places. So now I'm learning about that also afterwards, are where is all the funding that we're going to have coming from? So that's really our next steps in Ector County. I have a pilot group of apprentices already in Rapids. They're already ready, but I'm working with my local Workforce Commission, with the Texas Workforce Commission, and with the Department of Labor, but learning a lot through that. And I think that that's the challenge once you're registered, is where do you go? Where do you receive the funding? But I will say, I never would have this registered apprenticeship. And we just announced that we're the first district in Texas to have the K through 12 principal apprenticeship. And David and Miles also helped us with that process. And we did that process in 2 months, which was really, really quick. So not as hard as you think it would be, but it was because we had guidance going through this process.
Well, you're way too kind, and all that credit should probably go to Miles. Miles does incredible work, and also my colleague Ben as well. And so thank you for those kind words. But I think the other thing I just want to point out about you, Jamie, is that you keep knocking on the door. I always make this joke when I present all the time about, like, you got to take the Kevin Costner approach, not Yellowstone, but Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come. And so, Jamie, that's exactly what you've done. You were exactly what you said. Okay, now next step is figuring out what additional funding we can potentially access. You're knocking on the door of the Texas Workforce Commission. You're engaging in those conversations, and then being proactive on the principal side. And if you notice, folks who are attending this today, you're noticing one thing that Jenny, Dominique, and Jamie all have in common, is that they're not waiting for teachers to come to them. They are being proactive, not reactive. They are cultivating talent pipelines. They're taking multiple approaches. And to be frank, if you notice, in each of their work, they already had a great thing happening. We view registered apprenticeship as phase 2 of a high quality grow your own or a teacher residency type program. And so it's very easy to support people like Jamie in Ector County when they already have awesome programs up and running. And in the cases, if you're somebody here today and you don't have a program, that's fine. Start from scratch and figure it out. It's the best day to have started a program was yesterday. Therefore, the second best day is today. You got to start somewhere. With that said, speaking of supporting folks, Jenny, in your case in Michigan, an ISD or intermediate school district serves other local school districts. Based on that context, can you talk about how you are supporting districts in within Saginaw ISD's purview in their teacher registered apprenticeship programs?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the county that I serve in, we have about 26,000 students, 12 public school districts, plus our parochials and our public charters. So kind of give you a span of what that looks like. My major role really is educating and connecting. So really kind of starting about ground zero, because the terminology is very different, getting people together and helping them to understand what registered apprenticeship is. It's not just for construction and manufacturing. What are the benefits? What's the track record in Michigan? What does that look like? And helping them to understand the flexibility that's built in. There are a lot of sometimes negative perceptions when we talk about registered apprenticeship that we just need to talk through, as it relates to the actual realities and what this could mean for districts in terms of cultivating talent and bringing people to the pipeline. And so really that education piece and the terminology piece is really where we started. From there, it's been a lot of connecting and convening, bringing people to the table. Okay, so, where's your funding going to come together? How do we loop in our America Job Centers? So in Michigan, we call them Michigan Works Agencies. So if I slip and start saying Michigan Works, that's what it is. That's what we call it in Michigan. Our post-secondary partners, who are all the players that need to be at the table? We work really closely with our Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity and making sure that there's resources and having people be in the know about different things and funding streams that they can apply for. I've supported them with understanding what they need for their standards of apprenticeship and their Appendix A, and connecting them to one another. We have a lot of districts that were really interested, and then sometimes it's that wait and see approach, right? Let someone else go first. And so learning from one another, I think, is super important, and being able to share those successes and having each other help one another. So, I act a lot as the convener and the connector between all of these agencies and entities. Shortly, I'm going to be taking on an intermediary role for one of our local school districts, or anybody that would like me to do so within our county. But my goal is to support the districts as much as possible and help them look at their potential different funding streams, because that comes up all of the time. How do you fund this? What does that look like? And so it really is, I'm finding it's kind of like a craft, right? Where how can you braid together all of these different funding streams and sources, knowing that not every district has all of those same funds available to them. So that's been how I've been basically supporting them and helping to champion these efforts for them.
Yeah, that's great. I love that point, that last point you were making. There's a lot about funding that can be universal, and there is a lot that is site specific. And that can even be, Jamie, in your case, like it can be different for Ector County than it would be someone over in Houston, or Jenny, as you talk about Michigan Works or American Job Centers. Different regions have different funding priorities. It could be a new stadium's being built in one part of the state. Therefore, you're going to see a big investment in skilled trades as they're trying to build staff to build that stadium. Like, it's fascinating how that can work. But I think that promise of there's potential money at the local level, state level, and federal level. I mean, in Dominique's case, they got federal money for theirs through the SAFE grant that he referenced that Anne worked on. So different examples there, and that's the key. What are the things we can learn from each other universally, but then there will always be those very specific things. Speaking of specific, and things in common, universal, I should say. So the opposite of specific. Each of you are members and have presented in the National Registered Apprenticeship and Teaching District Network. So first, thank you for sharing your wisdom today, but also in the past with other districts. Can you each share a bit about why you joined the network and your experience in it? Dominique, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, sure thing, David. So we saw this as an opportunity to learn, grow, and have the support needed to have a grow your own program, but most importantly, to sustain it, right? So we figured this would be a great opportunity for us to collaborate with others in different spaces to help us with this. As I said before, we really focused on the grow your own piece just a few years ago. We looked inside of ourselves and said, hey, this is going to provide us with an opportunity to grow our own teachers, our own educators. We're a small community. You come here, you get this hometown feel. Like I said, we do have 21 schools, but we serve about 13 to 14,000 students. It's a bedside community. And as it was mentioned earlier, most individuals who are young and they in high school and they want to become teachers, they come back to their community to teach. They don't go too far. So we said, shucks, man, we got to take advantage of this. And, with the teacher apprenticeship program, we saw this as a path, an opportunity to address the teacher shortage and the diversity issue that we have here in our district. We also wanted to take the next step rather, in the Grow Your Own work that we initiated again a few years ago. This was an opportunity to help us remove some barriers for some of our paraprofessionals, because we started with our paraprofessionals who were looking to become educators. but they didn't have, as mentioned earlier, they didn't have the funding, they didn't have the money at the time. They didn't want to give up that paraprofessional position to go back to school and to work to become a teacher of record. So this was a great opportunity for us and for our folks who are in the program. They're getting the education required to become a teacher of record while receiving the hands-on training. They're getting excellent feedback from multiple levels. They're getting feedback from their host teacher. They're getting feedback from the building administration, and they're getting feedback, like I mentioned earlier, from the state, right? Our team at the Department of Education, they have come down and will continue to come down to work with our apprentices. The experience has been nothing short of positive. It's been a great experience. It's created a buzz for us here. I frequently get phone calls, emails from paraprofessionals in the district now inquiring about the teacher apprenticeship, right? Because when we put it out there, sometimes when you post things, you email a district, there's going to be a hit or miss, right? Somebody may read it and say, oh, okay, that's another initiative. We'll see how it go, right? And now it's like, oh, this is a real thing. Oh, wow, the governor was here on our campus to sign the bill. This is legit. This is real. This is actually happening. And now they're talking to their colleagues about it and what this actually looks like, right? I already have 60 plus credits. The district, the state, they're going to help me finish this race that I started some time ago, but I didn't finish, or I couldn't finish because life happened, right? So it's been great. We have 9 apprentices, right? I wish we had 90. And I'm looking forward to it growing.
Great. Thank you. Jenny, for you, benefits of joining the national district network around registered apprenticeships and teaching.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. The benefits for joining is really learning from everybody and seeing what people are doing in different places in the country and how they're funding it, how they're choreographing what this looks like, but also being on the front end of things that are coming down the pipeline. That's been so beneficial. When we first heard about the principal apprenticeship, it's like, oh my goodness, like knowing that that's coming and figuring out, is this something that we might want to do here in our state, and how are other people implementing it, and what does that look like? So again, as an educator, learning and teaching been my bread and butter my whole life, right? And being able to learn from one another and be a student of best practices has been extremely wonderful. To Dominique's point, it has definitely created a buzz. I get those same calls all of the time. And so to be part of something bigger than yourself, to be able to bring opportunities to a profession that literally touches all other professions, that is a humbling experience. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to represent the great state of Michigan.
Yeah, I love that point about being a part of something bigger than yourself. Like if you notice, like for folks watching today, like if you're not picking up on the enthusiasm or the optimism of this work, like if we are not positive about the future of the teaching profession, then who else is going to be? This is not, I've heard the phrase like toxic positivity. That's not this, because Jenny, Jamie, and Dominique are literally know the people's lives that are being changed from this work, and they're getting more calls. And we're going to get into ed preps in just a second. But we're seeing in some cases across the ed prep providers with wait lists to get into programs. People want to become a teacher. With that, Jamie, I'll kind of do a 2-part question for you. The first part being about joining the network, and then if you want to transition into talking about your relationship with your educator preparation provider partners, which is kind of unique because, as you shared earlier, a partnership with yourself as well, as Ector County is approved as its own ed prep. But I'll turn it over to you, Jamie.
Well, coming to the meetings, for me, it's amazing because apprenticeships are new. And you would think in West Texas, because we're oil and gas, that our local economy would have apprenticeships. We are the first apprenticeship in Odessa, Texas. So our local Workforce Commission is learning along with me. I'm helping to teach them. They're helping to teach me. Our grant writer is for ECIC is actually helping them write some grants. And so I don't know what I would really do without the network, because it's knowledge sharing, it's resource sharing, but there's also advocacy within this where we're advocating for these programs and for each other. So I just can't imagine how I would be in this place that I am without that partnership, because I know I can reach out to anyone who's on the meeting and say, hey, I need help with this. Can you help me? And they are going to do that. It is just amazing to bounce ideas off of each other and even talk about other apprenticeships that could come. Should we have one for speech pathologists? So also having those conversations too, where we're problem solving. With our EPPs, we do have a junior college, Odessa College, and I saw that they had just joined your college network. And then we also have the University of Texas of the Permian Basin. Both of them are really engaged with the ECIC, and they see the importance of us having high quality teachers in our classrooms. So I think the one thing with apprenticeships is you have to go and ask. You have to go out and you have to ask for what you want. And so I can tell you that I was very nervous with going and asking them for tuition and fees to be waived for our apprentices. Not waived, but how can we ensure that it's fully funded, that we have a fully funded apprenticeship? Because I'm not sure if you know, but in Texas, an apprentice can have tuition funds. But since ours is fully funded, we can help that. We can use those funds on a dorm room or for food. And so I just met with the Odessa Workforce Solutions a week ago, and they were like, yes, this is what we can do. And so I went to the University of Texas first, and I was like, I need this apprenticeship fully funded. I need every student who comes to you to have their tuition fees paid. And so we talked about what we can do. We know that our apprentices will apply for grants, and a Pell Grant right now is about $8,000 a semester. So if they get a Pell Grant, we're going to use that. But the University of Texas of the Permian Basin is actually putting away $300,000 a year to ensure that if somebody comes in and needs funds to attend college through ECIC's apprentice program, that their tuition and fees are paid. Once UTPB was on board, Odessa College heard about it, and they were like, okay, we're going to do the same thing. Come on, let's have this conversation. Let's see how we're going to get more students in our classrooms, and then to become high quality teachers in Ector County. So just, I was amazed at how fast it was, how easy it was, and just that the universities were fully on board and excited about this work.
That is awesome. I love every time I hear that you have not because you ask not. So it's incredible that dynamic and partnership with Odessa and UTPB there. Dominique, do you want to talk about you referenced, but your good friends and great folks at Wilmington University?
Yeah, so Wilmington University, they've been great. As I mentioned, I started out earlier about the conversation that happened during the board meeting or post-board meeting. Rob Signo, who is the VP of Partnerships and Community Affairs at Wilmington University, they kind of kicked this thing off and, planted themselves pretty much as our partners for many things outside of the partnership, inside the partnership. So Rob, Tyler, Lindsay, Stacy, Laura, Amanda, and the rest of the team at Wilmington University, they're amazing. When we were going through the process and once we identified our apprentices, they needed to submit all the documentations for everything. But when it came down to like their transcripts, some of our apprentices, they hadn't been in school in quite some time, right? So they scaled the transcripts to identify and align courses as needed. They made some changes to kind of help some of the apprentices be where they needed to be. They made the classes, or they scheduled the classes that allow for the classes or for the apprentices to be in classes. They meet with them as a group. They meet with the apprentices individually, kind of talk about their individual needs, right? It's kind of like, each apprentice will have their own educational support plan pretty much in place, right? They're going to walk with them from beginning to end. And our apprentices, they shared nothing but great appreciation for the team over at Wilmington University. And for us as well, like I said, these are individuals who have gone above and beyond their call of duty as educational prep program to help our apprentices reach the finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. The WilmU folks have been awesome to get to know. So love that partnership. Jenny, if I'm not mistaken, Saginaw Valley State, is that was that the main partnership, or care to share about any ed prep or community college partnerships that y'all have in Saginaw ISD for this work?
Sure. Both Delta College and Saginaw Valley State University are partners because we have multiple entry points. As Dominique was saying, not everybody comes to the table with the same credentials. All of our apprentices right now in Saginaw County are actually current employees with local school districts. So no students just yet, but I know we're going to be getting there. And so some of them have accumulated some college credit. Some don't have any. In Michigan, we have some legislation called Michigan Reconnect. It's part of the governor's initiative to get 60% of our population to have some sort of industry credential or degree by the year 2030. And so what that means is if you don't have an associate degree yet, or credential, you can actually go and obtain that for free. And so that's where a lot of our apprentices starting down the road, they were in that boat or they didn't have it completed. And so partnering with Delta College, they have been tremendous with really getting these individuals set up, evaluating what it is that they are bringing to the table. We've had rich discussions with both Delta College and Saginaw Valley State University around things like granting credit for previous experience, often offering flexible options for courses, both instructionally flexible, but also just in terms of the timing and when they can take classes, because most of these folks they're continuing to work. They're not full-time students. So being able to get to that table. As I mentioned, with our student population, Saginaw Valley State University offers us a tuition discount, which helps to defray the cost. Because as Jamie said, you just have to ask. They might not be ready to say yes just yet, but I think as this obtains more and more traction, they're going to be more willing to come to the table and look at what they can do. It's such an imperative that we work on some of these things. So they've both been exceptional partners. And really looking at what else that they can do to help support the profession. But even just the community partnerships, like how do some of these folks get to the post-secondary institutions for these classes? So looping in our public transit system in Saginaw County in terms of providing direct routes to Saginaw Valley and to Delta College. I mean, some of these, when we think about wraparound services and what are the things that help to make somebody successful, or what are the barriers for them getting to that end goal, really sitting around the table with our EPP providers as well. They're boots on the ground with these individuals, helping to identify those barriers and who do we need to help eradicate those so that people can, get to that end goal. So it takes a village, it really does. And when everybody comes to the table, there's just nothing better than that, because everybody can say, I was part of that, right?
Totally. Speaking of wraparound supports, I'm curious, and I'll continue with you, Jenny, on this one. We'll go back around. Any advice for a district or an educational service agency that is considering launching or considering even pursuing registered apprenticeships in teaching? Wraparound supports might be one thing to factor in, but I'm just curious, and then we'll go to Jamie and Dominique.
I would say bring everybody to the table day one with your discussions. Don't have sidebars with this group and that group and the other group, or the wait and see methodology. Just throw it out there. The flexibility that it offers is immense, but that collaboration, because everybody brings something different and they make you look at things through a different lens that maybe you haven't considered. But if you build it together, you're going to build it stronger and you're going to be able to get traction. The collaboration is just absolutely essential. What are we missing? Somebody else brings something else up. But it's something to just try. I tell people all the time with registered apprenticeship, don't be afraid of it. just try it. You're not signing your life away if it's not working for you. You know, there's flexibility built within that. But that would be the first step, is just making sure all of your partners, your teacher unions, your wraparound services, your EPP provider, everybody's around the table. Even if they're not all talking the same language, everybody has the same end goal if they're coming to the table for this, and we'll get there. You know, it's a process, but having separate meetings, I think, is counterintuitive and counterproductive to progress.
Jamie?
I agree with that, with having everyone around the table. And I just think having a smooth rollout plan. I have people calling me every day, when can I get into your registered apprentice program? Well, we were just registered, I think, back in September. So I'm really doing some pilots. I'm really looking at, what do I need to do? How can I roll this out very smoothly in January and have 80 people in this program? But I would say do it a little bit slower. Don't have 80 people the first time. Really take it slow, pilot some interns or some apprentices within the program, see what you can do, work with your community, work with your different organizations, and then it'll roll out smoothly when you're putting lots of apprentices through the program.
And Dominique, advice that you would have for a district considering pursuing this work?
So I would just echo what Jenny and Jamie shared. Just do it. You know, bring your folks, all the appropriate stakeholders together, create a nice little plan for yourselves, and just do it. You know, we started pretty small here, which I think is beneficial. We have, like I said, 9 apprentices, and we're going to look to grow that, of course, because you're going to learn some things along the way. And if you're considering this, just know that you do have support, right? You can look across the country, and folks are doing different things. So don't be afraid, as that was mentioned. Don't be afraid. Just the old Nike slogan, right? Just do it. Ask questions. Don't be afraid to reach out to other individuals who are already doing the work. We would love to help. Like this, we want to see this to be a thing. When David shows that the map of the United States, we want to see it covered in blue. All right, all of that covered in blue. We want to see everyone doing this together, so that way we can have these conversations together. Your neighboring states, you can have these conversations together. The neighboring districts, we can have these conversations together, and we can pump, you know, life back into our profession.
That's great. Thank you, Dominique. I couldn't agree. I can't wait till it's all 50 states. And I mean, to think that this has all been done within literally less than 2 years. The occupation was approved at Thanksgiving 2 years ago with the first program. And shout out to my friends at Austin P State and Clarksville Montgomery County Schools in Tennessee, where we were able to get that first program. And that was National Center for Grow Your Own wasn't even around yet. I was Chief of Human Capital in Tennessee Department of Ed. So it's really exciting to see that work take place, and really exciting to see the 3 of yours leadership that informs your respective states in how to approach this work, and ideally expand the work long term. All right, let me I'm going to answer one question in the chat myself, just because it says, are there different barriers from state to state? Yes. 50 different states require 50 different strategies. That is, please, for that individual, please feel free. Our contact info is going to pop up at the end of this. Please message us, because our answer will be dependent on your state. I'm going to ask I'll do, if quick go around, last question for the panel. And you all hit on it in different ways, but just for it's all your answers are slightly different. Just the funding, how y'all have approached the funding to this. Jamie, in your case, it literally was asking, hey, you kind of answered that, but I think second, I want to highlight that you plan to continue to have funding with what's called the Texas Workforce Commission.
Yes, so working with the Texas Workforce Commission, but also you can work with your local economic development team. And a lot of times I know that if I'm meeting with them after Thanksgiving, and if I can get them to give me $100,000, the Texas Workforce Commission will match that. So that's why I'm saying
Nice.
having a really, really good plan together, because you're going to go to different entities and ask for funds. And so making sure that you know what you're asking for, why you're asking for it, and exactly what you're going to do with those funds. But that was really exciting when I met with the Texas Workforce Commission. They were like, hey, if you can get this, we can do this. And so just reaching out, and you're going to find that people are going to send you to different places, but just keep going, because there's so many funding streams that you can pull from. You just have to be diligent and like you said, keep knocking on doors and keep going to the different places.
Yep, yep. Love it, love it. Dominique, in your situation, you referenced the SAFE grant. Care to share any more about that?
No, so again, the SAFE grant, big thanks to Ann for submitting the application and going through the process with the SAFE grant. That SAFE grant was applied and approved and allowed for us to cover the tuition, fully cover the tuition for our 9 apprentices. So those 9 individuals are getting their education or continuing their education for free.
Yep, yep. If folks, for those who may not be aware of the SAFE grant, it's the State Apprenticeship Expansion Formula Grant from the U.S. Department of Labor. It is only eligible for a state agency. And in the case of Delaware, they applied and they're using some of that money for the teacher apprenticeship. We actually were able to partner with North Dakota Department of Public Instruction, get them $3.7 million just for K-12 teacher apprenticeships. That grant should come around back in next spring. So for folks, if there's any states on here, or if you're a district, ask your state, do you plan to apply for the SAFE grant? Because there is guaranteed money for that, the base funding, the non-competitive that Dominique referenced, and then there's also a separate competitive side of that. Really quick, Miles, could you pull up the slides again for those who may have missed it at the beginning? We're honored to have Dominique, Jamie, and Jenny be a part of our district network. As you can see, this is our state network that Dominique was referring to earlier. We got to get this whole map covered. We got 60% of the country now, but we got a lot of those bigger states land-wise. So it looks like the map's a little more full. Next slide, Miles, please. The district network, which we're honored to have Saginaw, Ector County, and Appoquinimink be a part of. I hope your district is next if you are watching this. And then finally, our Ed Prep network that just launched this week. Shout out to our friends at Deans for Impact. As Miles is showing our contact info, I believe next, I want to thank 2 different groups. One, AASA and AESA for co-hosting this with us. And I also, last but absolutely not least, thank you so much, Jenny, Jamie, and Dominique, for not just today, but for being members of our National Register Apprenticeship District Network, but more importantly, being innovators, trailblazers in your respective states, to be able to show what is possible, to not worry about, I might not have all the answers, but we're going to figure it out. And it's so exciting to see. I look forward to when we add another district from Michigan and another district from Delaware. And I think we got a couple districts from Texas, but for size, we can afford to add a lot more districts from Texas into the district network, but they're all learning from your all's example. So thank you so much for being a part of today. And folks, please feel free to email us if you have any follow-up questions. Thank you so much for attending. We're just excited to have completed our 4th webinar in 3 days. Happy National Apprenticeship Week. Take care, everyone. And thank you for coming today.